9 minutes past 7, you are listening to Sabahul Muslim on Radio Islam International. So, the Queen is dead. How do we react from an Islamic perspective? Look, let me say this. She has reigned for so long that I think many people were wondering whether she will die in our lifetime or whether we will predecease her. She was born in 1926 and she's been on the throne, so to speak, since 1952, I think. So she's been the queen of Great Britain longer than many of us have been alive. Most of us, longer than most of us have been alive. That's how long she's been there. So it's become like a constant in terms of global affairs. Now, the way it was, portrayed and projected over the decades, especially with the Queen of England or the Queen of Great Britain, considering the colonial role of the British in the last couple of centuries, right? It was not like the king or queen of other countries. Other countries also have kings and queens. Most people don't even know who they are and what their names are and what their roles are and that kind of thing. But the way it was projected, power of the media, and this was long before social media, people were fascinated, absolutely fascinated by the royal family, even those who didn't live in Britain or didn't live in former colonial countries like South Africa or were not part of the Commonwealth. They were fascinated when Charles married Diana. People were fascinated when they had all the problems. The media went to town at the time, even though it was not as sophisticated as it is today. The media, social media and all of that. She became like the people's princess, and people were so sorry for her. Then you had Diana's tragic death in that car accident in 1997. So people have been conditioned to be fascinated with royalty. I don't think this is a new phenomenon, but because she reigned for so long, this fascination was perhaps deeper and over a prolonged period of time. Then the glitz and the glamour, the tradition, the protocol. People will marvel at that diamond on the on the crown. If you only know where the diamond came from, many would say where it was stolen from. So that is something that we need to keep in mind. But we've grown up in an environment, in a community, in a society where we have been conditioned to be in awe of royalty, to see that that royalty is doing a favor to all of us, to be fascinated. The question is, what does the royal family represent? If you look at the EFF statement of yesterday, some may find it a bit harsh, a bit hard, but I think they make some valid points. They say their statement was that we're not mourning the death of the Queen. They talk about how South Africa suffered as a result of colonial rule, how India and the resources of India and many countries were looted to the detriment of those countries for centuries to come. And some of the things that happened in the Queen's reign, not prior to her reign. So you have that on one side. You can't just whitewash that. You can't just kind of brush it under the carpet. The colonial legacy and what this royal family still represents up to today. That those crown jewels and where they came from originally. That in itself tells you a story. On the other hand, she as a person, according to those who knew her, who interacted with her, especially those who live in the United Kingdom, they feel she had some redeeming qualities, that she was a good person by nature. She did some good work. There were good initiatives. There were good projects. She tried to rein in the royal family as far as possible. So as Muslims, we always take a balanced approach when it comes to assessing the legacy of anyone. We show respect. Our deen shows us, highlights to us, to show respect in the way we speak about people. Even when Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam wrote to Heraclius, he acknowledged his title, Ila Herakal Azim Rum, the supreme leader of Rome. Ideologically and in terms of belief, we are poles apart. But you show respect. I don't think there's justification to be disrespectful to a person that many see as their leader and as their senior. At the same time, we can't become just so overawed and totally obsessed by the this conditioning, so that we're just fascinated with everything, and we forget what the House of Windsor represents for those countries that suffered under colonialism. That also. So there's got to be that kind of a balance. Then, from a deeper Islamic perspective, we need to be careful about this rest in peace thing. I know some people say they don't mean it as a dua, as a supplication. Technically, it is, and if you're making dua, then it's problematic from an Islamic perspective, because we know the Quran was very categoric. There was no exceptions. Even Ibrahim alayhi salam was forbidden from making dua for his own father, and he was Khalilullah, because the apparent state was that they did not embrace the deen. So the same would apply here. You can't make dua for those who pass on outside of the deen. But at the same time, some people argue that no, it's not meant as a dua, it's just meant as a condolence, but then choose other words, because this can become very tricky, and you don't want to play with these things. They are so sensitive from our aqidah and our belief perspective. Then, I mean, the most important thing is not how long you lived. I mean, people have a fascination when someone lives a long life. Her husband lived up to 99. He just missed his 100th birthday by a couple of months, I think. She came up to 96. I think her mother went to 100 and a couple of years. Mugabe also passed away late in his 90s, didn't reach 100. So a long life. But we should be making dua as Muslims that Allah grant us a long life with iman, with afiyat, with good health, not only physical but mental and emotional, with the ability to do good deeds. The longer you live with iman, the more you are able to do good deeds, and the more you are able to earn reward. But the most important thing is, you can be king, you can be queen, you can be Caesar, you can be Genghis Khan, you can be Namrud, Fir'aun, Haman, Qarun, you can be whoever. There were people before, and perhaps there'll be people after who had greater power, greater wealth. But do you live with iman or not? That is the critical thing, and we have to remind ourselves in that regard that yes, we get fascinated by people who lived a life of power and a life of wealth, but what's most important for us as Muslims, we should never forget that. May Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala grant us the understanding. Okay, from a political perspective, obviously there'll be discussions as to what happens now, and people will have some degree of interest. Interest is one thing. Fascination and obsession is another thing, with how things unfold and the name that Charles chose. He could have chosen another name. Some of them have 4. He's got 4 official names. Some have up to 7. You choose one. He's going with his first name, just like his mother did. She was Elizabeth II. He's Charles III. What will it mean for the monarchy? Australia wants to break away, with others now want to break away and not continue to be part of the Republic or part of the Commonwealth. Within the United Kingdom as well, they got a unique system, right? The Queen was, and the King now is the head of state, but in reality, they have no political power. It's the Prime Minister that has political power. Anyway, coming up, we have our hadith for the morning on the theme of Jumu'ah. Then we cross over to Pakistan for an update there in terms of the flood situation. Words with Maulana Wajah, Tafsir of Surah Banu Israel, Middle East report with James Dorsey, all of that in this hour. The next hour, the Asri report with Ibrahim Fakir. We continue the discussion on the benefits of spring. And we talk about, something very interesting, and that is happiness, contentment, and all of the associated words, right? Success, perseverance, with Fatima Hassan, who's a life coach. So keep that dial on Radio Islam International.
Hadith discussions on Sabahul Muslim with Maulana Sulaimaan Ravat.
So we've been talking about that special time on a Friday when du'as are most readily accepted, and the majority say it's between Asr and Maghrib. There's an amazing incident narrated in the Musannaf of Abdul Razzaq about this special time of Jumu'ah. Abdullah ibn Abi Talha radiyallahu anhu said, once the Prophet ﷺ was leading Asr on Jumu'ah when a dog came in and was about to pass in front of the congregation, when the dog suddenly crumbled in a heap and died. After Salah, the Prophet ﷺ asked the companions, who cursed this dog? One man said, I did, O blessed Prophet ﷺ. In Tabrani, it is narrated that this person was Sa'd ibn Abi Waqqas. Nabi ﷺ said, you cursed him at the time when supplications are guaranteed acceptance. So this was the time between Asr and Maghrib. May Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala enable us to maximize on the benefit of this time. Ameen, Ya Rabbil Alameen.
This is Sabahul Muslim.